Hello Bluebells, we're going to read the last part of The Legend of Kevin. Here goes. The next weekend, they all got into the car and Dad drove west. Kevin flew above them most of the way, except sometimes he sat on the roof rack to rest his wings. Along the big roads they went, and then the middle-sized roads, and at last they were on the tiny bendy roads like tarmac ribbons, which grew steeper and steeper as the car wiggled its way up into the wild, wet hills. And there's a picture of Kevin sat on the roof rack as they're going on the bendy roads. The air was cleaner there, and the wind was full of the smell of the moors and the wild western sea beyond. Kevin took off and soared, spreading his wings and circling higher and higher until he could see the hills laid out below him like a map. He couldn't see his nest though, so he came back down and had a picnic with Max and Daisy and Mum and Dad. Then they drove on a little further and Kevin tried again, soaring up, 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 but he still couldn't see his nest. So they drove a bit further and then Kevin flew up for a third time, higher than ever, until the car looked like a toy on the ground far below. And there, beyond the road, across a white rushing river, behind a rocky outcrop, on one of the very highest of the wild wet hills, he saw his own dear tree and the remains of his nest. He let out a happy neigh. When Max heard it, he felt terribly happy because he knew Kevin had found his home, and also terribly sad because it meant Kevin would be leaving. Kevin came swooping down again. He hovered just above the car, ruffling Max's hair with the flapping of his little wings. So there's the car looking really tiny on the road, and Kevin flying high up in the sky looking for his nest. He reached out his velvety nose and snuzzled Max's face. "Bye, Max," he whinnied, and Max fed him one last custard cream. Then Kevin flew right around the car 3 times, did a loop-the-loop, and flew away. Max shaded his eyes against the evening sun and watched until Kevin looked no bigger than a bird. He watched until Kevin looked no bigger than a bee. He watched until Kevin vanished completely. And even then he kept on watching just in case Kevin changed his mind and came back. And there is a picture of Kevin doing the loop. It's a very clever pony, especially for a little fat one. But Kevin did not come back, and after a while it started to get dark, and Mum said kindly, "Come on, Max." And Dad said, "It's time we were getting back." Even Daisy was nice to him on the long drive home. But Max knew that it wouldn't feel like home at all without a roly-poly flying pony on the roof. Back in his tree, Kevin carefully rebuilt his nest. He lined it with moss and lichen and snuggled down in it. He was happy to be back in his own hills. It felt good to be able to hear the wind blowing through the grass again, and the river laughing at its own jokes down in the valley, and all the other nature noises, mostly drowned out by people sounds in Bumbleford. "This is where I belong," he thought, tucking his nose under his wing and settling down to sleep. But something had changed. The woods and the wind and the water weren't enough for him anymore. He was missing something, and it wasn't just custard creams. He was missing his Max. And there's a lovely picture of Kevin in his nest in the tree. We will have to look out and see if we can see any ponies in nests in trees. Meanwhile, back in Bumbleford, Max was missing Kevin just as badly. He tried to be cheerful about it and tell himself that he'd done a good thing by letting Kevin go back to the wild. But it had been so nice to listen to Kevin's little hoofs clip-clopping about on the roof. and the room seemed very quiet without them. It had been so nice to wake up every morning and go running upstairs to see Kevin, and it was hard to get to sleep knowing that you would never, ever have that to look forward to again. And there is a picture of Max in his bed, trying to get to sleep and feeling very sad indeed. Max felt as if there was a hole inside him, and it was the hole in the shape of a fat flying pony with very small wings. When he woke, the sun was shining through the curtains and the birds were singing. Something was going clip clop above his ceiling, and Max thought sleepily, Kevin's awake. Then he remembered that Kevin wasn't there anymore and felt sad all over again. Clip clop went the noises, clip clop. Kevin, whispered Max, throwing off the duvet. Kevin, said Max, jumping out of bed. Kevin, yelled Max, running out of the flat and up the stairs to the roof in his pyjamas. Guess what? Kevin was standing on the roof munching a mouthful of grass from the flower pots. He had made himself a big raggedy nest near the pigeon coop and lined it with moss and pigeon feathers. He had had trouble getting to sleep too. He'd had a long think, and he had decided that now he knew his way from Bumbleford to the wild, wet hills. He could always go back there when he felt like it, or when Max was busy at school. The rest of the time, he could live on Max's roof. He decided that home was wherever Max was. But he didn't know enough words to explain all that to Max, so he just said, custard creams. And there is a picture of Max and Kevin having the biggest hug ever. That, children, is the end of our story. So, close it now. I hope you enjoyed it, and remember to do lots of reading at home. Bye-bye, and see you again soon.